Hey there, it's Chris, and welcome back to part 17 of the Bang Shishigami project. Now, before I get to the two ladies here behind me, I'm just going to go ahead and point out that we've spent the last, if you've been watching this daily, as I've been posting, we've spent the last 3 weeks building up everything we have here. And off camera last time, I kind of finished off the pants. They're now hardened, they're done. Everything here is now good to go. He comes off, he comes on, he comes off. Everything is working really, really well in regards to him. So today, we're going to do something completely different. This whole thing we spent literally the last 3 weeks putting together, which technically, being as it's been 16 episodes, this is, if you have a 9-to-5 job, this is approximately 2 days. So we spent, let's put that, we spent the last 2 days building this. We get to ignore it altogether. We don't need any bit of this at all today. We can exit him screen left. Sorry, Bang. You've been fun for a while, but for right now, you are gone. So why do we have these two? Because today, we are going to work on the face. So rather than look at the whole thing, we have, actually, we're going to be working on his face. And to do that, we have a little show and tell we're going to do from the start, because if all goes well, this should actually be a shorter session to begin with. But to show what I'm going into with that, we have Rydia here on the left, and we have Kat on the right. Now, why do I have these? Because primarily there are two separate ways that I know of, and I've used on how to create a face on these projects. So on the one hand, we have Rydia, was one of the earlier models I did, and this is probably one of the first that actually looks actually fairly good. I actually do enjoy this one. The hair is the hair. I don't know if it's good or bad. I still love the model. I still can't tell you if it's good hair or bad hair, but I still like it. But hers was done primarily, you take a block of clay, and let me put you back on here so I can manipulate things. Whoop. And you can take that, and from here, you can kind of carve down. You can make the eye sockets. You bring down, you make the nose. You can make the mouth, and you can kind of start from there, from a solid piece, and just kind of keep molding away until you get to that. Now, the pros are, you wind up with the full head in the end. You do have the nice curvature going throughout. You don't risk anything happening to that. But the main con of doing it this way is as you're holding stuff, you're always kind of putting pressure on the inside. If you're, say, putting in the eye... Whoop! Let's not lose Cat. That would be bad. She does come apart in pieces. The bangs falling off there is okay. But as I was saying, the major con too is if you're, say, doing the eye sockets and you're pushing down in, when you push down clay, it doesn't disappear. It goes somewhere else. So if I'm pushing in here, it's going to come out to weird areas. So as you're working the clay on this, it tends to come out in weird areas. And although Rydia's came out really good, I have some other ones which did not, and it takes a lot of work to get into that. So the other way of doing it is how I did Cat's, which actually, we're going to go and pivot down here. The very first attempt I made at doing method number 2, which is rather than do a sphere, we can take our clay, cut it in half effectively, stick it on a solid surface, and then from here we can just effectively cut the face itself to the size we need. We can push down in here, and this way as we're pushing in, we're not making weird areas. So the very first rendition of, I'm not even sure my Link from Zelda 1 has even made the channel yet, but this was the very first attempt at that. The real one wound up a little better, but you make a flat face first, and then you build the head that goes behind it, and that is the way Cat's head was actually put together. So hers was actually a flat front that then I made a separate piece that goes behind. And the risk it runs is if we don't do this correctly, if I don't kind of round it off, it can read as a flatter surface than put onto a rounder head, so it can come out as a flatter. Hers actually came out pretty okay. Paint job is but the head itself was fine. Facial expressions also kind of but this becomes, I think, a much safer way of doing the heads. And that's the way I'm going to be doing bangs on this one. But I just want to show there are multiple ways to go about this next step and what we can or can't do to make that work. So both ways can come out, if we work it enough, both ways can come out fine in the end. I could, rather than video, I could use my Arn one as well, which also came out really, really good of just using a round one. But yeah. But in any event, I've kind of evolved from the one to the other, and that's kind of what we're going to be going for here. So give me just a moment, and I'm going to be moving a whole bunch of things out of the way, because I don't want to accidentally knock things over and have bad stuff happen. That would be not good. So 1 second, just to kind of move a bunch of stuff. Okay, there it goes. Ooh, didn't mean to take you off the base. I forgot this base weighs a ton, so it doesn't quite come with her. Okay, we're back. And I guess I might as well just stick you back in the background, although you can stare at his feet the whole time. That's fine. Okay, so with that, let's go get ourselves some material to work with here. And let's see if we can create his face. Now, why am I doing his face first? Because it would make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I have the bottom section. Let's just kind of work up. I could do the sleeves, I could do the jacket, I could do the arms, then I can do the scarf, then I can do the face. And I can just kind of slowly build them up. So why do the face first? I need to do the face first because he has these, if we come back to the whole thing here, you can see his shoulder pads or his jacket comes way up on the side. And if you do the scarf as well, the scarf also comes up. So if I want to blend the neck into the body on him, I want to blend this down into there. It's going to be hard to get into that area to do it effectively. So I want to be able to do that before I get these other things on here, which means I need to start with the face. I'm going to do the face first on this session. Next session would then be build the head and the neck from there. And then after that, I have a choice. I can either kind of finish the hair stuff, or I can go for the jacket and whatnot. And I'd probably lean towards doing the hair stuff just to, if I start an element, just kind of get it going. But yeah, now order of operations says it's going to be much easier to try to blend this before the other stuff goes on here. So that's what we're going to do. So here we are. I have all sorts of lines on my screen right now, which shouldn't be here. And although ultimately we're going to be using the close-up bag to get the facial features and all that correct, I'm actually going to start with this version, because this version is a dang good, just straight up, here's your profile. I can get all the sizes I need and everything right off of this, and that's going to be perfect to use. So the first thing, get ourselves some of this, and I did a little bit of pre-measuring before. The width on him winds up being approximately 3/4 of an inch. The height is approximately 1/8 inches high. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start by doing that. We can measure across. That's approximately his width. That's going to make a bottom. And I know you can't see it here. We have along the perimeter, okay, I can use this side. Along the perimeter of this mat, I do have a little measuring tool, or it does have a little measuring thing. I do have my engineering rule as well, engineering scale as well on the side I could use. But if I have the mat here to go off of, I can just go off of that. Why not? That's going to put the top of his head at approximately that. So if we come over, that's approximately our duder. It's going to be something like this, which looks really small, but again, once you start having the hair come off of this in various directions, it's going to come out. Plus, I have him on my background here I'm also using, which is scaled to the correct size. As you can see, bam, there we go. So that's all we need. It's a really tiny, heads are not huge. Heads are not huge. Now what I didn't measure was from the bottom to the eyes. So let me do that real quick, because that would be super helpful to get that number right. Okay, and so from the bottom of the head to the eyes is only about that, which makes sense because the eyes are generally right in the middle of your head. Yeah, so having that right there is kind of what we'd expect to see. So if we have you coming here, we have that there, bam, we've now centered ourselves on what we need. And now he has a bit of a pronounced chin, and then it's a really kind of wide angle coming up. So you kind of do something like, so your face is kind of that shaped. Yeah. So we can take that, we can come in just a little bit, because again, he has a chin. He has that chin going. And that's, I can round you off just a little bit, but that's effectively our face. Let's go and round you off before I get into the good stuff, because again, I don't want his face to read as just flat. When I'm doing a realistic size like this, I could have used Rain's from the Night Witch, the one I just before, but hers, like the Link one I had shown before, like this one I had shown before, which actually this has never been hardened. It's just, it's been here like for the last year. It was actually over a year ago I did him, so it has kind of air dried over time. It would be a little brittle if I were to do something with it, but the clay does air dry over time. But Rain's is like his, where it's a more cartoony dimension. It's huge, it's big, and for this type of model, I thought the other two figures were more kind of in line, the size-wise with his, than the other one was. So that's why we went with that. So we have that there. We need to make the eye sockets, which kind of come down. And then, unlike Kat had very soft kind of features when I did hers. Bang's are a little more oomph. He has big brows going on. And if we have our general size, we're going to be going back and forth between these two, I think, images quite a bit. But yeah, his eye socket actually goes up more. Now, typically, I'm not particularly great at faces. This is still one of those elements I would like to, if I were to spend time just practicing elements, I think this would be one of the ones I would do. But at the same time, I know this is going to turn out really well, so I don't need to worry about it for this segment. And the reason why I know this is going to turn out well is because this isn't being done live. This is being done on a Saturday, and I believe this one is going to, if everything goes well, is going to be posted next Friday. So if this doesn't go well, I can go ahead and do it again. So we have, let's get a little more forehead on here. Yeah, I was looking at the dates I did this on. Again, right now we're kind of getting to the middle of June. Last time when I did Rain's face, that was closer to the middle of April. So again, the rate I do these models at is not particularly quick. I take my time on these, then I take a little time off, then I go to kind of do the next one. It's kind of the way I go about things. So I don't necessarily practice things over and over and over again. Ooh, and because this thing is smaller, I should have something that this... You know what? I don't need the pasta roller. So how about I take the box from the pasta roller and we stick this thing kind of up here. So you can actually maybe see what I'm doing. So right now we have a very ugly looking thing going on. And we're going to see what we can do to make this less ugly. Alright, so we got a nose going. We're just kind of going to add the individual elements right now, and then we can enhance, add to, subtract, whatever as this goes. But at least get the elements that can help make this look like a face right now. And that said, part of the face does not include the ears. The ears are going to go on to when I do the head, they're going to go onto the head portion. So I'm not even going to be worrying about those guys at this juncture. That comes later. Okay, so as we can see, Bang is not a super young guy. And why that matters is because my understanding is the nose never stops growing. So he has a little bit... His nose is actually a little bigger than any of the other models I've done. It has a little more pronouncement to it. So this might be a little bit of a trial to get this particular element to look correct on him, because there is a little more to it than the others I've worked with. But I don't think that should be too terrible to try to get right. All it does is get a little wider at the bottom than I've had to think about before. And bam, we already have it. Am I even on camera? I should probably look at the preview just a little more often at what we're doing. But okay, so we're starting to get something going here. Now, I don't have my oven set up for this. Once I'm off camera, I'm going to do a little more smoothing and stuff after. But between this session and the next, I will wind up hardening this, so that I can then do the next step of adding the head behind it. But for now, we're just starting with this part. Okay. And he's got that, oh, I already have the nice smirk going on behind him here, so that's awesome. And know how I said I generally use my 3 tools? I have the back of a paintbrush, I have the knife, and I have the spade tool. Well, this is where, granted it's the same, I have the same back end as this, but I do have a point one as well, and that's actually going to be super helpful for doing this. And I guess when I get to the eyes as well, I have the little, has kind of little ball kind of dot things on the edge I can kind of get inside and maybe work with as well. So let's see. He has a smirk going on. Now he also has a chin. We're going to, you know what, I can just add the chin right now, because I'm being bad and I'm putting off this hard part. Or I guess nothing's really ever hard. It's just some things require more work than others to get done effectively. And he definitely has, I'm not going to say it's a Bruce Wayne Batman kind of chin going on here, but he definitely has a little bit of a chin happening. You watch Batman the Animated Series, oh yeah, he has all the chin going on in that one. which actually that's still a good show. I know every now and again I kind of like once a year I'll go and I'll rewatch like maybe one or two, like an episode or two of some like the childhood shows you used to watch when growing up, and a lot of them haven't aged particularly well. I remember going back and did, I think it was Gargoyles and Thundercats. Ironically, one from the 80s, one from the 90s. Last session that I did it, and they're both very rough. I went and did the Batman one. Batman one still remarkably holds up. I was actually shocked. I just assumed everything else had kind of fallen apart. I need to do TMNT at some point. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I gotta try that one again. It's been a long time since I've seen the original version of that. And that would probably be, I'd be really curious how well or not that kind of holds up. So he kind of has a little, he's got that mouth going, but it's kind of a smirk that goes with that mouth. So we're going to see how well we can do this. Okay, so now comes the trick. We need to get some of this out. Like I said, I still love the animated stuff. Maybe I never grew up. I don't know. I still don't think of myself as an artist. Like I said, I do these kind of art projects, but I'm like one of those guys who sees a blank page of paper somewhere, and I just don't do what I don't know what to do with it. I can kind of copy things, and we're at that point. So I enjoy watching the works of people who do know what they're doing. So for me, the animated works are still, I find them enjoyable. So things like anime, I'll still like maybe go an episode or something a night of something, just kind of like before going to bed, just kind of see what's on there. And not convinced on this at this point. This might take a couple iterations to get it right, but that's okay. So actually one of the ones I just did was after kind of just finishing that last session earlier in the week. I just finished the show Megalobox, which was a boxing anime, which I'd never seen before, or never even heard of before until I was kind of looking around at stuff, and I was actually pretty impressed with that. It was actually pretty good. Graphics were really good. Story was solid. It's what you expect kind of from a story or from a sports show. Whereas when you watch a sports one, you know exactly where things are going to be in the end. You have like a no-name person comes up, starts getting involved in sport, and you know exactly where the final episode of anything. It could be whatever sport you want. You know where it's going to wind up being. You're going to wind up in the ring. You're going to be fighting for a championship. So that much. Then there's always like the drama and stuff that kind of goes with it. Yes. But the good thing with sports ones, you know exactly kind of what to expect. And that one definitely lived up to it. You get to the point, you get to the final bout, and you're like, okay. You're not necessarily cheering for your guy, but the good ones make you just want to be there for the experience of the end. And in that regard, I think that one was a big success. I then took a few days off. There is a second season to it. I took a few days off of that, and I've kind of popped on Psycho Pass, which is kind of like, for me, returning to an old friend. They had 3 kind of like hour-long specials. They have Sinners of the Society, which, if you're familiar with Ghost in the Shell, put out by Production IG. Yeah, Psycho Pass is the same thing. Production IG makes that. So it's a quality show, and it was just like kind of take a break from one season of the one to the other. So now I went through those, now I'm kind of going back through season 2 of the other. And it's a very different feel, but overall, it's once you get through the fact that, okay, it's not the original, I think it works out. It's actually working out really well. But again, I'm only kind of just started it. I'm like a third of the way through. It's a 13 episode season. Both seasons were 13 episodes, and that's it. They're short ones. They're quick. I can kind of bang them out relatively quickly. But Probably should have done the Megalobox stuff before trying to do this part. It might have been actually super helpful. Not gonna lie. But we didn't. So there's that. I'm missing you. I have... Because, yeah, anatomy is one of the strong suits of that one. Go figure. That said, I've kind of gone through a lot of the classics that are out there. To kind of, like, if you've ever heard of an anime type show, I've probably seen it. So anything I generally watch now is just kind of go and... They say you can't judge a book by its cover, but in some ways the cover will get you to figure out if you want to read the book or not. So I kind of go by graphic styles. I go by kind of the years things come out. If something's coming out in like the 80s or 90s, I'm like all there. I love those types of series. The recent ones tend to be pretty good. For me, anything that kind of comes out in that kind of, let's say late 90s to early 2010s, early to mid 2010s, they tend to be a little rough. And those generally aren't my style, because that's kind of when things started going a little more, I'm going to say, mainstream. So rather than just kind of doing what they wanted, they started making more shows that were made to kind of appeal to everybody. They're kind of trendier. They look like they're, I don't know, there's just something off about that entire like decade and a half span of shows that I just can't get into. I've tried them. There are really good ones in there, but like for every Full Metal Alchemist or something that comes out during that time period, there are a bunch that just completely miss the mark, and I just can't. So I generally kind of avoid that time period when I can. But at the same point, in terms of watching new ones, I don't really have any on a list that I'm going off of right now. And right now, he doesn't look like he's smiling. We need him to... So that means we need this to come up a little. Maybe you come up just a little. Yeah, look at that. Not really good smile. So if you go, we need a little bit of... Yeah, okay, I think we have a smile going again, so that's good. It's not necessarily correct, but we do have a smile. You know what? On my screen, give me 1 second here. I need to get back to a useful character on my screen that I can go off of. I know what you guys are looking at on yours, but again, your version is really tiny on my screen, so I need the bigger version I can go off of so I can actually see what I'm doing. I keep kind of putting this up against yours. It's like, no. No. We can't do that. Okay, so we need a tiny bit of this. Yeah, I realize my tastes aren't for everybody either when it comes to the shows. There are a number of ones that I really like that other people don't. I look at like the Psycho-Pass. Everybody loves season 1 of, say, Psycho-Pass. If you enjoy the kind of cyber kind of environment, whatever, it's a really good one. That one's effectively, it's Minority. If you've ever seen Minority Report, that's pretty much the world of Psycho-Pass, which it creates a number of intriguing scenarios you can go off of. Everybody seems to like really love season 1 because it kind of sets everything up and whatnot. And to me, I'm a bigger fan of season 2. I think season 1 is fine. I think 2, like the group dynamics and stuff, is just a lot more cohesive. Everything works out better. I like the cast of characters more, and it feels right. Everyone else seems to think the exact opposite. But I know my taste doesn't match a lot of people, but I enjoy what I enjoy. And I've gotten used to the fact that I can just enjoy what I enjoy, and we're there. Okay, so do we need a little more cheek on him? Maybe, because I kind of fluffed all of these cheeks, or I kind of rolled them away. So let's get you up in there so we have at least a little bit of cheekbone that it looks like is coming out. Yeah, usually if I have a choice between, say, a cyber something or a fantasy something, cyber something is going to win out. There are exceptions. Like, what was the Freerin? The Freerin one that just came out a couple years ago. I forget the name of it. But it might have just been Freerin, which is a very fantasy-oriented one. That one was actually really, really good. And I would be curious if they ever get another season to come with that. But again, fantasy ones, generally speaking, aren't my cup of tea. But that's just one of those that had so much hype, so much kind of talk about it that I was kind of really curious. And that one did live up. That one's really, really, really good. If you want just like a good, wholesome, kind of gives you moralistic, kind of gives you more perspective. Because effectively, Frieren is an elf who can live for like thousands of years, and it's how she deals with the fact that nobody else around does. So how you kind of deal with mortality, how you deal with how you do or don't approach the people around you when you know if you make friends, they're not going to live as long as you do, kind of thing. And it's very big on like the life lessons and just perspective and whatnot. And that one is a solid show. But by and large, I tend to go, or at least I tend to enjoy these scenarios that say a cyber thing brings up. It's a little more relevant to day and age type things like a Ghost in the Shell or a Psycho-Pass or something like that. Where what are scenarios that come up if we do start being physically connected or physically, joined by like the internet type situations, or anything kind of to do with cyber stuff is generally more in my wheelhouse. But here we go. But you don't need to be listening to all this stuff while I am slowly trying to make a face look like it's smiling and failing badly the whole way. Let's see if we can. That was also 100% not a topic I expected to get onto today. I came into this whole thing kind of feeling really glad that during the course of the week, my fitness stuff has finally kicked in to where I was hoping it was going to be. I had it was really like a 10-week plan to get to exactly where I am right now, and it actually worked out in the end. Whereas about 10 weeks ago, I started training for this ultra. And for the first 2 weeks, I did all the practices were super fast. And then the last 8 weeks have been generally, at least my weekday ones have been generally kind of really slow. I've been doing the zone 2. And the idea is to not flood the muscles with lactic acid so that it can help the mitochondria grow in density without being completely wiped out every time you do a workout. So you kind of gain some, you lose some. Now you're supposed to gain it first. So I did that the end of kind of last summer into the fall. It took about 8 weeks of just doing that before I started seeing any kind of real gains coming through. I did that again in a second season, kind of at the very start of winter, kind of late fall, early winter. Same thing, it took about 8 weeks to see the gains from doing that. And so I spent the last 8 weeks generally doing the really slow stuff, and this week, all of a sudden, my times have plummeted. I went from 10-minute miles down to about a 9:40. Actually, it was more like a 10:10 or something, because it's been getting warmer, which has not been helping things. And that dropped those times down to a 9:40 while maintaining the same heart rate. So instantly, that has kicked in. Now, if I'm just doing normal running, I'm usually like low 7-minute miles. So this is zone 2 stuff. This is a different. This is purposely trying to run slower, but the results are finally kicking in to what I wanted to see. Now I just need to hold it there for the next 3 months as I get ready for the actual race. Okay, we're going to continue with the smile a little bit later, but let's see if we can get the eyes. Now his eyes are not really anime eyes in here. Let's see if we come back to you. Which means I'm going to change my image again. Let's zoom you in. Whoa, zoom too far. Yeah, okay. So if I have that. Yeah, they're not super anime. They're kind of like halfway between your stereotypical anime and your non. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right in. Let's see if we can turn the camera over just a little bit. That goes up and out. We have a little bit of that. And it's really kind of 4 movements. Bottom comes down just a teeny bit, and then it goes so his eyes are actually fairly small compared to, I feel like, what some of the other ones have been recently. But I get that. I want to take a little bit of that out. I don't need to take that much out of it, but I do want to take a little bit out just so it's sunk down in here just a little. Whoop. Alright, so we just made a little bit of mess, and I feel like actually his eyes feel like I'm almost in there a little too much, so I probably didn't actually have to take that out. So let's go ahead and put that back. Okay. Now this is another one of those elements where if I'm painting it, I will do this. I will make one small change that will make a massive difference in here. And that actually, if I reach back over way behind me, and if I bring my radio one back, if you look in the middle, whoop, let's not drop you. We don't need to break anything. That would be bad. But if I bring, actually nothing broke. If you look right in the middle on the eyeball, all we did was we take one of these guys and push in, and if you're not painting it, we add that, so it adds a bit of a shadow line in there, or a little indent just so a shadow can draw your eye to something. Oop, okay. Whereas if we're painting it, we're going to be drawing that part, and having any extra ridges in here to deal with actually makes things much, much harder. And it's work that doesn't need to be done. So now that it's not smoothed particularly well, but at least now that we have one of them here, again, I do want to have a line in this. Again, having an outline of it will help draw your gaze to something. So we're just going to that said, we got to bring the cheek up just a little bit more so it kind of blends into the bottom of this. And I'm getting the feeling that what I thought was going to be a super short session might not be as short a session. Okay, so I have that. Let's go do kind of the same to the other side. Move you up a little. Now here's where having something to go off of, we've already on this other side, makes life a little easier. At the same time, we need this to actually feel symmetrical, which in the end actually kind of makes this a little harder. But now that I know I'm not actually going to be digging out the eye on this one, I can just kind of push it in, because I think I already made the brow very, very deep, so I don't really need to push the eye in much on that, just because I put the extra brow piece on here. And just like that, it looks like I did nothing. Again, we just want very subtle, very kind of subtle. Let's see, can I just... There we go, I think that's getting it. And I'm putting very little pressure on that, but it's just enough to kind of do something. Alright, so we have two eyes that don't look the same, so that's super cool. Okay, that helped a little bit. That helped a little. Oh, you know what? I think we have enough of this one now. We got the eye, so we can kind of come back to you. I almost want, I think, a little more mouth open down here. Oh yeah, there we go. More mouth. More mouth is the answer. Get a little teeth action in, which you may or may not be able to see. Whoop, as we drop him on the ground. Just get an idea how he's looking. Yeah, he looks like it's very small on there, but it is the correct size. Just double check one more time. Let me get you out here, and yep, we are still, haven't changed. We are what we want to be. I wanted you there, and I wanted you there. Yep, no, nothing's changed. I haven't pushed things out or done kind of crazy stuff to it, so that part's nice. Okay, so what else do we have? Come back to you on our profile view, and we have, he's got the big brows. This guy is bushy brow. He has a very Rock Lee kind of look here in terms of Rock Lee with mutton chops. There we go. That is him. Which, if you ever watched Naruto, you will absolutely know who that is. If you've never watched Naruto, then that reference is going to mean nothing to you. Which, considering who I'm pretty sure I know is watching some of these videos, pretty sure you have no idea who that is. But if I were to say, Naruto's a pretty good. I think the original Naruto, the first like real arc, the first like I forget if it was like 60, 70, 80, whatever episodes that first arc was. I think that was really, really good and really well done. Afterwards, I think the plot got in the way of a lot of things. But it's one of those shows that I think started really good, had a lot of good kind of morals and stuff going with it, had a lot of good kind of drama. It was back when people were using their brains to kind of solve things and not just bigger explosion wins the day kind of dealy. But it's a definite go-to watch. Yeah. Rock Lee is one of those characters who has no innate abilities in him, but with hard work and determination, he will go and he can prove that he's worthy of the role he's trying to get. And he is a solid character in that regard. It's one of those I think a lot of people can kind of relate to. Let's go back to you, because that's actually what we're going to be looking at. You're going to come up. Now you look like the evil I have my eyebrow raised. Haha, take that. We're going to bring it in. He's got a little bit of bushiness to it, so let's flatten you out, kind of get a couple little kind of bushy things on here which you can't see on this, but you can trust me, they're there. Do a little bit of the same on the other side. Oh, nope, I need more than that. Come on, join together. Now the question is, he has that big distinctive scar on his face. Do I physically model that? Or do I just do that strictly with paint? That is the real question. I can see benefits to both. We have that. What I don't have is I don't have eyelids on him, which is also not particularly good. You need eyelids on a character, or kind of your eyelids on any kind of person are probably not a bad thing to include. So we just add a little something there that gives us a little bit of an eyelid. I'm dropping stuff. Let's see, straight profile. This kind of says what I want is the nose to maybe come in just a little bit before coming back out. He has a little bit of something going on there. Alright, super happy guy. An eyelid that's going crazy on this one. An eyelid that's not at all correct on the other. We have kind of a happy face going. Teeth feel like they're in further than I need them to be, but at the same time, not sure how I'm really going to make that feel any more right. We do have the cheekbone that comes around the mouth, not too badly here, so at least it looks like that part is reading a little better. We have a forehead that's up there, and then again, if we want to, we can always take pieces like this up. You can see he's going to have the hairs just kind of flop down. He's going to have hair that kind of comes down the front. And in the end, that's going to be... It's going to look less like devil horns coming down, trust me, when I get to the end of this. Every now and again, I just kind of like doing a quick... Alright, where's... He's going to have the hair, it's going to wind up coming down in the end. He's going to be good looking dude. So as much as you want to focus just on all this part being 100% perfect, there's... yeah. Once the hair and stuff goes on, this blank is... Let's see if we're trying to angle this right so you can kind of get something-ish like that. Doesn't look like he has a smile anymore. And it doesn't take much to transform a smile into something else. So let's see, how about we give this a shot? Yes, that goes there. It comes down through the eye. Down. Let's see if we have you coming through the eye down to about here. That said, I do not know the story behind the scar on his face, but I don't know if there is one or if that's just a character design, nothing else. But it's definitely there. It is definitely there. Stuff has happened. For sure. Okay, so we're just getting smooth things out just a little. Yes, at least now he has the scar on the face, which if we come in close enough, and if the camera were to actually focus like it should, you'd be able to see it, but camera's being a jerk. That's pretty much what we have. We now have a bang face. It is the start of where we want to go. Feeling okay about it. I may just play a little bit with the mouth just to kind of this, that, or the other. But I think by and large we're kind of there. And so what I'm going to do now is we're going to end this session. And then next session we're going to come in. I'm going to build the head and the neck. And we're going to see if we can move these things out of the way. I'm going to bring this guy back into focus. And we're going to see if we can turn him into a real character and get this going. So we have that. Then we got a whole bunch of, he's got some crazy hair to do. He has got some hair going on, but nope, that's where we stand. We have ourselves the head, or the face. And yeah, with that, I'm going to leave it there. And then until next time, might as well just hold it up here for the end. So with that, yeah, until next time, enjoy.